Good morning, my Empowered Empath Warriors. Welcome to the Self Empowered Empath Podcast. Okay, so I just wanted to briefly interject here and just say that this podcast is actually, it used to be in the Superconscious Success podcast, and I decided to create this as its own individual podcast to be able to help go with the brand of the Self Empowered Empath. And so that you'll know that the content that you receive in this particular podcast is going to be related to empaths. It's going to be related to narcissistic abuse and energy vampires and codependency and powering up as that empath you were designed to be. So if you find reference within the podcast, or if you're wondering why it's sort of like, says something about Superconscious Success, that is the reason why. If you haven't yet checked out Superconscious Success podcast though, definitely go ahead and do that. That's got some great spirituality podcast episodes you may be interested in. This particular podcast, this is a podcast of mine and Terra Bundance's, and we are here to help you to power up as that empath you are designed to be. With both of us having struggled with codependency and other, issues being around narcissists throughout our lifetime, then it has really opened our eyes, and it's really something we are very passionate about. So I just wanted to interject here before we get into this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in future episodes. After a number of these are done, and I've actually converted them all across to the Self Empowered Empath, then we will start our official Self Empowered Empath podcast, where we will interview guests, but also we will do individual episodes, as I've just done one of my own on codependency. And this podcast is going to have either individual episodes with myself and Terra, or there's going to be joint episodes. There's lots of incredible content on its way for you. Okay, thanks so much for joining us today, and I will catch you later. Bye. This particular video is going to take you through 7 signs that you may be in a karmic relationship. Let's start off by saying that on a personal note, I have been in a karmic relationship with somebody very close to me for many years, and I've been and it has been a tumultuous time of pain, heartache, and many, many lessons. However, I'm happy to say that the soul contract we had and our karmic ties have now been severed, and our relationship is forming a whole new dynamic, which is absolutely incredible. Now, karmic relationships, they are not fun at all, but they are designed to help you evolve and grow spiritually, which it certainly did for me. I went from a codependent empath with very little self-worth to a powered up empath that has evolved spiritually. Now, let's start off by explaining what a karmic relationship is. These relationships are connections between two souls that have had past life experiences together and have come together in this lifetime to eliminate the karmic debts that they owe each other. It's important to understand that every action we undertake in our lives has a corresponding consequence, and these consequences actually carry forward into our future lives. Therefore, if you have unresolved issues with another soul in one life, you'll reconnect in future lives to resolve those issues. Now, in my case, my karmic was actually my mother in previous lifetimes, and I've actually had my Akashic records read to determine that, and I've had some past life readings done to figure all of this out, because I was really curious as to why this particular relationship was so tumultuous and why I was struggling so much with it. And once I started to recognize that in a previous lifetime, two previous lifetimes, she was actually my mother, then I started to go, I put 2 and 2 together now, because my actions in the previous lifetime and my dependency upon her and her dependency upon me too has meant that we've had to come into this lifetime together in a different form to be able to release those karmic debts. And so I learned about codependency, I learned about powering up and that sort of thing, and she learned the lessons that she had to learn as well. So it's quite it's a difficult period to go through, but it's one that when you go through it, it feels amazing. It really, really does. And I have, I look back now and people would go, don't you resent it or whatever, because it was a tough time. But you know what? I don't. And I'm so incredibly grateful for this beautiful soul that came into my life, agreed to help me to learn these karmic debts, to learn these karmic lessons so that we could erase these debts, and also to agree to also deal with their own karma at the same time, which they have been dealing with. And at the same time, they're learning their lessons and they're going to absolutely rock it as well. I can just tell. So the greatest thing about it is that once you've cut those karmic ties, then all of a sudden your relationship can take a whole new dynamic. You don't have to eliminate them from your life altogether unless it's purely toxic and that's what's meant to happen. And your spirit team will actually guide you towards what's best for you, and your higher self always knows what's best for you. So if you listen to your higher self, then you'll be guided to the right place. Now, karmic relationships are often intense, and I mean really intense, and they can be either have a really strong attraction or a really strong repulsion towards the other person. And this is because the connection between the two people is actually based on a shared past life experience. And this past life experience may have been positive or it may have been negative. In the past life, they could have been lovers, and they've come back into this life to be able to reconnect and to continue the relationship. This is the case. Obviously, there's going to be an intense attraction. Now, if they're two enemies in a previous lifetime and they've come into this lifetime to kind of resolve that, then there can be some tension and some repulsion initially as you're going through that experience. So, this is what we need to look at when we're going through a relationship. That's if you're looking at more of the romantic type relationships or friendships and that sort of thing. So it's, there's no set hard and fast rule, but there is, as you'll see in these 7 signs that you may be in a karmic relationship, that is one of them. So like I said, karmic relationships, they're not necessarily romantic in nature, and they can come in the form of family members, children, parents, friends, co-workers, and business partners. And it's important to understand that if the karmic debt is not fully resolved, then what you'll find is that the two of you will find yourself being drawn back to each other even after you've tried to end the relationship. And that's just so that you can be drawn back to each other so that you can finally learn the lesson and let go. So this is also when you need to take a deep dive into what the corresponding lessons are that you're needing to learn, and also look at cutting up the soul contract if need be. And I'm going to be talking about this in an upcoming video and podcast. Anyway, so now that you know what a karmic relationship is, it's time to move on to the 7 signs you're in one right now. Now, as I just mentioned, there's an intense attraction or repulsion. So in a karmic relationship, you may have that intense attraction or that repulsion towards somebody. And this may be because the connection between you will come from the past life experiences. Like I've just said, you may be an enemy, you may be a lover. It's not necessarily romantic in nature, but it will feel like an inexplicable pull towards the other person or a strong desire to go nowhere near them. So it could be either way. For no reason whatsoever. You can't put your finger on it, but that's just how you're feeling. Number 2 is you feel like you've known the person before. Have you ever come across somebody and you just go, I feel like I've known you for lifetimes? This is probably because this person is put into your life as a karmic, and therefore, or as a soulmate, and therefore really look for the lessons and what this person is trying to teach you. So if you have shared a past life with somebody, then in this lifetime, you'll feel like you've known them for ages, and it will feel like a sense of familiarity and comfort with the other person, even if you've just met them. So I think we've all been in situations like that. At least I know I have. And yeah, it's quite amazing. Okay, there may also be an instant connection. So in a karmic relationship, because you have that deep spiritual connection, which is really difficult to explain, you'll feel this connection on a physical and emotional and a spiritual level. And you may find it's intense at the beginning. So rather than take a long while for that connection to build, and it doesn't have to be romantic, it's instant. You know that you've got this connection, whether it's good or bad, you know that there's a connection there. Number 4 is intense emotions. So karmic relationships often involve intense emotions. You may find that you have a strong codependency with this person because your emotions are so closely intertwined due to you working through these deep-seated issues from past lives. On top of that, you might have number 5, which is repeated patterns. So if you find yourself repeating patterns in your relationships, it may be a sign that you're in a karmic. If in a previous life you were codependent on somebody, as I explained with my mother, then you may find yourself codependent with somebody else in this lifetime, so that you can finally learn the lesson of powering up and being strong. Once you learn that lesson, the ties are cut and you're able to move on. And it feels so good when that happens. Number 6 is feeling like the relationship is predestined. So, sometimes we have a relationship and we just feel like it's fate or it's destiny, and we just know that we're supposed to be put together. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit about my son. My son's 21 and he is a gamer. So he loves gaming, and he was gaming one day and he came across this girl tried to contact him and tried to connect with him, and he wasn't going to do it first. He was like, oh, no, I don't, he just broken up with someone. He's like, oh, I don't want to do it. But something told him, he said, Mum, there was this voice and it told me that I had to connect. I just had this knowing, this feeling that I had to connect with her. Well, they connected and they were friends for a few months, and then it was like an instant connection. And then they fell in love, and they were still chatting online, and they both classify themselves as each other's soulmate. And he's actually moved to the other side of Australia to live with her. And this was all through just connecting online, and they are as happy as anything. It's like it's fate. It's like it's destiny. They were supposed to meet on that particular day. They were supposed to connect on that day. And it's quite beautiful when you see that situation. That situation can happen with karmics and it can happen with soulmates, but it can be very difficult to explain to somebody else that's not involved in the relationship. And finally, this is something that was really big for me. It was feeling like the relationship was out of my control. So in a karmic relationship, it can feel like it's out of control. You may feel like it's completely tumultuous, as I said, and you might find you want to hang on, even though you are going through a lot of pain and suffering. And this is exactly what mine was like. And I started to lose myself in the situation. So if you're feeling like it's out of control and you're starting to lose yourself and you're feeling codependent, there are a lot of resources to help you with that. You do need to cut the ties with this karmic. You do need to learn that lesson and power up, and then get rid of that soul contract if you really need to. If you're lucky, you're able to reform these relationships. It happens sometimes, it doesn't in others. Depends on what your desire really is.